Let's move on to even more politics.
Ooh.
We're giving up all appearances. This is a technology show this week. This one is really pure politics, but of course, politics affects the ecosystems, countries, and communities we live in. And I think this is sufficiently important, Yaniv, that we bring it up and discuss it. Silicon Valley is in the US, and the US is being buffeted by some extreme political machinations at the moment. The Supreme Court recently ruled that a president is essentially immune from prosecution for their acts during their presidency. Now, there's more subtlety to this. They claim that it's only about presidential acts that are immune. However, I watched this long video by a very pragmatic legal analyst who kind of breaks down law and legal interpretation. And his assessment was, and he was citing others who are even more learned and senior than he, that this is really a fairly blanket immunity for presidential acts, because the core of what is a presidential act is barely defined, actually not really defined, except that it includes the military. So almost by definition, using the military in any way, shape, or form is immune. So you could use SEAL Team 6 to murder your political rivals. All the way to the outer limits of this, where there are these gray boundaries where immunity should be presumed unless otherwise proven. And so it's really, for all intents and purposes, for all functional purposes, the president is now a bubble outside of or immune from US law. And this is really the dissent to this for the minority, who are the Democrats, really, or the liberals on the court, is scathing. I mean, it is just like a dissertation on like bad decisions. And it's been cited as really one of the top 2 or 3 or 5 bad decisions in the court. I'd put Citizens United up there as well. So this is, I mean, I think without hyperbole and without, I don't want to be alarmist here, but it's pretty catastrophic. And when you combine this with Biden's, as far as I know, as far as recent memory goes, the worst debate performance in the history of modern American politics, where he just came across as a completely senile, feckless, useless old man. And that has massively impacted his popularity ratings. And now the Democrats are really trying to get him out. So now the whole party is fractured and they have really a lame duck running here. I don't know about your politics. People listening here will have different politics, but it shouldn't really matter what your politics are. You really shouldn't want the president to be king. And if you are a liberal or feel like Trump has strongman tendencies, I think you should be really quite concerned. At least I am. What do you make of this, Yaniv?
I'm less certain than you. I mean, I'm not a constitutional scholar of the US Constitution or anything like that. I actually think that the headline doesn't bother me, right? The headline is, if you're the president and you are in charge of the most powerful military in the world and the most powerful economy in the world, you need to make decisions that are very consequential all the time and that will have the potential to do a lot of harm. As long as you're doing that as part of your job as being president, you shouldn't be able to be hounded and prosecuted for that later. I'm like, that makes sense to me. I've got to be honest, right? So then the question becomes, well, okay, is the way this is phrased and whatever, does that mean the immunity is granted beyond that? Like, that question of, can you use the military to assassinate a political rival because you're the commander-in-chief? Yes, you're the commander-in-chief, but no, that is not an act of the presidency because you're not acting in your capacity as the president of the country. So yeah, it's a question, I guess, of like, how hard does it become to bring a prosecution and so on? How easy is it to delineate between official acts and unofficial acts as a private individual? Because like I said, I do think that you should be immune for official acts. So I guess my answer is this, I don't know. Like, the president shouldn't be above the law. That is clear. I don't know if this makes a president above the law. Don't know.
Well, again, the way the decision has been drafted, it is extremely broadly drawn and gives the president basically the benefit of the doubt when acting on the organs of his direct power, of his unique power. So if he is using his unique power, and they specifically list 2 or 3 of these powers, and one of them is the power of the military, nowhere else, by the way, are the president's unique powers explicitly listed. And so that's a bit of a shit show in its own right. The decision, the ruling basically says, by definition, manipulating the organs of his direct power, i.e. the military, that it is a presidential act, and that he is essentially given full immunity about that. And anything on the bubble, he is given presumed immunity. I mean, it cannot be more strongly and broadly worded as far as the analysis goes. I'm not a constitutional scholar, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that the idea is that the president is absolutely subject to the law and that his acts as president should absolutely be scrutinized not just by the law, but by the other branches of government, right? The whole point of the US Constitution and governance model is that no one can be trusted with power. And so that there is this perfect circle of checks and balances. And that actually the presidential branch, the executive, was designed to be the weakest of the branches because of this ability to accrue power to an individual. That is just fundamentally not true. You don't need to be a scholar to understand that. It is not true anymore. And I just don't know where this leaves the US. And if you think of the US as District 1 in the Hunger Games, the rest of the world. I think it's terrifying. You put the wrong man or woman in that seat, you're going to be spending a long time chasing them around trying to prove that they've defied this ruling and broken what little law they have left governing them. And by the time you're done, I don't know that the courts will be left and that the political rivals will be left because you're too busy squabbling about what immunity really means.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. Yeah, I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great about it.
You say that so casually. I guess we'll see if it's the end of democracy and the Western world order as we know
well,
it.
there's plenty of threats to democracy in the Western world order. This is one of those threats.
Okay, Yaniv, well, that's our thoughts on the topic. What do you guys think about the ruling from the Supreme Court? Does the president become king? Are they above the law? Is this really a catastrophic thing, or maybe I'm just exaggerating? Let us know what you think, and let us know what you think about what might happen in the next presidential election.